What's good?
So start recording.
Yeah, go for it.
Hello, Australia, and welcome to the BAP. It's the 4th of December 2016. My name is Franco, and joining me are Dean and Jason. How are you, gentlemen?
Fantastic.
Pretty damn good, Franco.
Oh, that's what I like to hear. Racing straight into the douchebag filter. This week, I started watching a new show,
What'd you start watching?
Preacher.
Oh my God.
Any of
You
guys
totally
seen it?
trumped me.
Is
I've
that
seen
on
the
your-
entire season, actually.
Well, there you go. Well, let me
Just this week.
set it up
Go
for
for
you,
it.
and you can start talking about it. So, Dean, as you may
I've
or
never
may not
seen it, never heard of
been
it.
aware of, it's a black comedy supernatural horror based off the comic book Preacher by Gareth Ennis and Steve Dillon.
It's a Vertigo comic.
Is this Netflix?
No, Stan was what I was
Stan.
watching.
This is
it
why
on,
I haven't
yeah.
seen it.
So it's sort of similar to, I suppose, Dawn to Dust, that series.
Dust to Dawn.
Walking Dead in terms of gratuitous violence,
Oh, much more violence even than Walking Dead in some ways.
but it's more comic.
Yeah,
violence.
you're right.
It's still got an R8 plus 18 rating.
A
But
little bit more sex.
Does it? Oh, I haven't got. I've only
Walking
watched the
Dead
first
doesn't
two
have an awful lot of
episodes.
sex.
No, not with
I
zombies.
can't actually think of. I mean, there was a pregnancy and a birth, but
No, there's a bit of sex in this. There's a lot of violence. As Franco said, some of it is, not all of it, but some of it is over the top comic sort of violence a little bit. But it's a fantastic series. It deals with, deals a lot with, what is it? Freedom of choice. And
I see. Who's the lead?
cannot remember his name now.
Oh, good.
The actor's name or the character's name?
Dominic.
actor's name.
Dominic.
Was it like who would I know? Are there any?
Ruth
any
Negga
stars
is
that I'm gonna know?
is the lead actress. I cannot remember the guy's
She
name.
plays Tulip.
This is backwards for you. Normally, you're like down with the white male.
I'm,
name.
the
I'm a
only
woke
name
I'm
I
a woke
know-
man, Dean.
Yeah.
Was Seth Rogen's one of the producers.
Yeah, he's one of the producers.
Everyone else is very minor actors, or not in anything we would know.
So how far into it are you before I?
Watch the first two episodes. So they're
Oh.
still establishing who's who. So I've been introduced to the three main protagonists, which are Tulip,
The preacher,
something
Jesse.
Jesse Cassidy, and no,
Cassidy the Irish vampire, and his introduction was fantastic.
yes. Sorry, Jesse Custer is
Jesse
the
Custer.
preacher. That's his name.
And Cassidy the vampire. I don't know what his last name is.
The
The
Irish
vampires
vampire.
don't need last names.
No.
He's
So
Irish.
they're the three.
You'd imagine
main-
they'd have one though.
He's
I mean, they've been
busy
around a
calling everyone a gobshite.
The main
gobshite.
crux of the story is Jesse, who has a very dubious dark past, has come back to town based on some promise, which I've still yet to find
And he's
out.
taken
what it
over
is.
his dad's church.
He's a preacher, and he then gets.
Is he also the son of a preacher man? If he's taken over his dad's church?
Indeed. There's Johnny Cash music.
That would
as
seem to
well,
be a little bit obvious, yeah.
Just curious.
There is Johnny Cash music.
which is
Johnny Cash comes up a few times, actually.
it's very appealing. But he gets possessed by some sort of spirit.
Johnny Cash.
No, well, the preacher. Some did say that Johnny Cash was possessed by the devil. So
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and who is this spirit that's possessing Jesse? Anyway,
it's
it
the
gives
spirit
him-
of Johnny Cash,
it
aka
gives
the devil.
it gives him the power of suggestion over people, so he can
I was just like Kilgrave from Jessica Jones,
very much like Purple Man.
but he's a
well, he can't see
Hero?
inside people's minds. He can only give them the power to do something. Oh, I suppose.
Yeah,
Kilgrave's
it's the
gonna do
same
something.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very, very similar. Only at least the preacher is nominally. Actually, I don't know how far you are in because he's not even sure he's got it until what he's got until the third.
It's coming clear that he's realizing he's got the power of suggestion.
Yeah. So and at least he's trying to do the right thing. But does it work out well for people? I can't really.
Does it ever?
Well,
Would it be a dramatic show if it worked out just fine for him?
That's right.
He comes back to town. He goes, "I'm gonna change people's lives."
And I think
20 minutes later,
it's
everyone's
not giving
fine.
anything away. The first time he accidentally uses the power, he tells a man who's been bugging him for a long time about how his mother's been harassing him. He says, "You need to go and talk to your mother and just open your heart." So he flew to Florida, talked to his mother, and then stabbed himself in the heart, pulled his heart. Anyway, it took it very literally. As you
Right.
can see, things don't work out well all the time.
That seems like an odd power of suggestion. Like the word, it's like you're going for a wish from a genie. And he just
It's exactly how literally will people take it and stuff like that. So I can say that the season's well worth watching the entire season. I can't wait to see where they go from it.
Where's it? Who's it originally manufactured? It's Comic Stan original. It would be an American TV network.
It's AMC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
AMC. AMC have a habit of making stuff that just fundamentally disappoints me over and over.
I wasn't disappointed by this season.
No, it doesn't start out like that. Doesn't like Walking Dead, AMC.
Yeah.
Started out
And,
great.
and I've heard that there's some the comic purists, and not all of them are pleased with it. But I got to say, I was pretty happy.
Hang on, are neckbeards ever pleased with anything?
That's right. The characters are pretty compelling. Tulip's fantastic.
Why is Tulip fantastic?
It's just to
Why is she named Tulip?
Actually, I'm not sure why that. It's not her actual name. It's somehow
A nickname she acquired over time.
But she has some history with
Is
the
she
preacher.
Dutch?
No, she's
Tulips are Dutch, right?
Yes, they are. She's not Dutch.
Is she a secret Dutch sympathizer?
I believe.
Does Franco know this?
She's
And if
an
he does
Irish
know this-
Ethiopian actress who's playing a Texan.
A lot of Irish people in the show. Irish vampire, Irish actress.
She doesn't have an Irish accent. She's putting on from what I understand, is quite a terrible American accent, but it sounds like her to me.
Aren't they all kind of terrible?
Yeah.
Even the legit ones.
So it explores a lot of issues around free will and people making their own choices and whether they're forced into something.
How
But
many
there's you've got
episodes
the best bits to come. There's the government agents, which you've seen in the first 2 episodes as these 2 wandering men.
Yes.
Because the spirit would turn up. The series opens with the spirit flying through space and just coming down to Earth.
Is it a space ghost from?
Who knows? Who knows what it is? Diving into a preacher in Africa who feels the power in him, promptly says, "I am the prophet," and then explodes. and then later on dives into Tom Cruise as a representative of Scientology. Tom Cruise explodes.
Is it actually Tom Cruise that they've blown up?
Of course not.
No, because I would watch this. It was actually, what's it? Clear and Present Danger. Is that the one where Steven Seagal gets sucked out of the plane in the first 15 minutes of the movie?
Executive
Decisions. Yeah, I've watched that movie once all the way.
No,
through.
you don't get to see Tom
and then
Cruise explode.
the starting portion of that movie about 20 times.
His explosion is merely a news event in the background.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame. But apparently the Tom Cruise people were very upset about this. Whereas people turned around and said, hang on, this show's taking your religion seriously as a serious religion. You should be happy.
There was that, the leaks from Scientology. Is it Leah Romani? Romani was her last name? Anyway, Tom Cruise apparently, when he became an operating Thetan level 3, his exact words were, "What the fuck is this science fiction bullshit?" And then he didn't talk to the church for 10 years. And they came back and they lured him back in.
And got him up to Thetan level 8 apparently now.
Yeah. But when he, his first stuff, he was like, "Oh dear, this is lunacy."
Because the Louis Theroux movie, he asked what level Tom Cruise was.
Yep.
Thetan level 8 apparently. There's only one level higher, and that's the head dude. Anyway, So Tom Cruise explodes. Other people, other religious leaders exploded when possessed by this
Tom
thing
Cruise is
until
not
it
a religious
reached
leader.
our preacher, and it stayed with him.
Right.
And that's where the story leads off. So they're in a Texan town, and I can say that they spend a bit of time in that Texas town.
Drinking Texas tea.
Anyway, so it was very enjoyable, Franco. I guess you enjoyed the first 2 episodes.
Jury's still out for me. I'm still going to continue watching at this point. I haven't necessarily been turned off. So stay tuned for my future comments on it.
We're going to have a new segment on the show.
He's reserving his opinion.
I've finished Mr. Robot. Really enjoyed it. Although
Season 1 or 2?
Season 1. Now I'm at a loss now because I know what's going on. And that was a big part of what I enjoyed, was not knowing what's going on. Now that I know what's going on, I don't know if I'm ready to go into Season 2.
Maybe there's something else going on in Season 2. And you'll be like, what's this about?
Perhaps you can't be too entirely sure that you know exactly what's going on.
I'm a lot clearer on what's going on than I was in the first half of the season.
I need to start watching Mr. Robot.
Dean, any douchebag news?
I haven't watched television at all. We've had Christmas parties and general drinking and celebrations, and I've not been near a television.
Well, I have.
I have a funny story. It's kind of douchebag village. It's not really news, but it tickled my funny bone this
Is
week.
it douchebag featuring in the
It
story?
is kind of. Well, in a way, it's sort of Borat-related douchebaggery. There was a New Zealand citizen, Chloe Phillips Harris, who was denied entry into Kazakhstan by immigration officials who, upon seeing her passport, refused to acknowledge the existence of the country of New Zealand declaring it was clearly a state of Australia and that she was not allowed entry into Kazakhstan. They then took her. She then tried to fuck around a bit, so they took her into a interrogation room and then made her point at a map where she's from, and the map didn't have New Zealand on it.
So she was wrong.
She was forced to say, "I can't point to where I'm from because it's not on your map." I love the way that Sacha Baron Cohen mocked Kazakhstan, probably just at random, and then this kind of shit comes up, and you're like, "Damn, that's some Borat level craziness."
Was there a date on that map?
I don't know. I thought that was brilliant.
Did she have to become someone's wife?
And I thought Frank was Mr. Accent around here, but turns out we've got Sacha Baron Jason in the room. No, I don't think she had to become someone's wife. She just had to go to China instead.
Okay.
She got denied entry. She didn't. There's no happy ending to
I
the
think
story.
I'd rather go to China, Kazakhstan, perhaps.
I think it's funny how Kazakhstan were like, you can't come in, your passports are fake. We're going to send you to China. They'll fucking sort it out.
Didn't they just question why someone might be trying to fake their way into Kazakhstan to begin with?
They were very interested as to why someone would try and fake their way in.
Why? Why are you faking your way in? I'm not.
What is it you want to do here? It's like, I wanted to visit, but now I'm not so sure. That's for our Kiwi listeners out there. You're not really a country.
Good news, gentlemen. We are broadcasting.
Well
I
done.
can confirm that. Listeners, I have to
Dear
apologise
listeners.
on behalf of Gary, Greg, whoever our technical person is.
You guys really need to pay more respect to Greg the intern.
As I said, he keeps fucking up my coffee, so I haven't bothered to learn his name.
So,
Well, you've
unfortunately,
unlearnt it, really, to punish him.
listeners, for 30 minutes you listen to us waffle on with douchebag filters, and then when we got to the juicy nectar of political debate, the broadcast cut out. However, through the advances of modern technology, I will be monitoring the show to ensure quality soundings from the boffins here can be heard.
Is this like Peter Dutton monitors the humane treatment of refugees on Manus and Nauru Islands?
But there are no more refugees on Madison Nauru. Oh, that's how he does it. Sorry.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Is it going to be that level of monitoring where you're like, but there are no listeners with
Did you
problems?
hear? Apparently, Trump may not be honouring that agreement to remove the refugees from Madison.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
That's not a surprise to anybody.
perhaps not a surprise.
When the government announced that and started celebrating it, it was like, I think that's premature.
yeah, we should have waited.
I feel like
I hope they didn't tell the refugees.
you might want to keep that on the DL because old Donald's not going to be down with that.
Well, that may well be dependent on. Is there any Trump construction going on in Australia at the moment?
No.
Or Trump services not getting the
Maybe we
attention they
should
need?
offer him a hotel, and that way he'll because
Well,
oddly
maybe that's
enough,
what Dutton needs to offer.
oddly enough,
him.
that was
I mean, there's plenty of twats on the Gold Coast. You can build
Trump
there.
does his foreign diplomacy usually by where he's having a hotel built.
Well, that's not necessarily true. He accepted a phone call from Taiwan.
This is exactly what I was just about to bring up.
I don't think he's building a hotel there, is he?
You obviously didn't read the other article that was on the Guardian as well, where it was he had a Trump representative had been there the week before to discuss putting a hotel up in Taiwan. So
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it may not have been in his phone call that he then. So Taiwan being declared a rogue province by mainland China. There's some very
Well, it's under the United Nations. It's not recognised as a country.
exactly. So it's a very hairy situation as to whether anyone should acknowledge their leadership, their government, or their self-rule. Trump, after his phone call with the Taiwanese president, then promptly tweeted it out. So foreign policy by Twitter.
Yeah. It was pretty funny. So someone buys $10 billion worth of weapons for us, and I'm not allowed to take a call.
What do you mean? Of course, I take a call from them. Yeah,
I'm perplexed about the US's relationship with Taiwan. So on the one hand,
they have no relationship.
They have no
They have
relationship.
severed that since 1979.
Yeah, they seem to have.
They
they
patrol
supply
their
them with
waters.
a lot of weapons.
Yeah, they patrol their waters. They supply them with a lot of guns.
But they give a lot of people a lot of weapons. So
Surely that, by virtue, is a diplomatic relationship if you're arming them to the teeth against a Chinese invasion.
they're not.
Was there already a Chinese invasion?
We won't talk to you, but here's a lot of missiles.
We don't know who's getting those missiles. They're just being shipped out. Someone's paying for them, and they're ending up somewhere.
Probably in the hands of terrorists.
They've never
Let's be
been
honest.
particularly worried about where any of their other arms ended up. So why should they be worried about these ones?
That's sadly true.
But yes, he did. He did. Apparently, there is some Trump hotels possibly going up in Taiwan. But apart from that, there are some going. He on becoming president-elect, he did get a building easement in Argentina after calling the Argentinian president. So because apparently there was a Trump Tower being held up there by some regulations of some kind that have suddenly
Probably
disappeared.
safety regulations.
Those things have been smoothed over, and
Paying
it's now smooth
subcontractors.
sailing. He also has a hotel going up in Turkey, and as far as I know, that's also moving ahead smoothly as well now. So, Trump getting stuff done, getting business done.
Well, I mean, right now he's not president; he's president-elect. So
No, but he's making no move to divest himself of his business interests.
Nope.
And apparently, the most he's going to do is hand the control of it over to his family.
To Donald Trump Jr.
Oh, probably his daughter, actually, more than the
Tiffany?
others. 'Cause the others are idiots,
Is
apparently.
it Tiffany? Because she's the biggest idiot. She's the only
No,
one.
she's the not hot one, apparently.
Yeah.
Well,
she's
she
the
was the only one that the Trump campaign did not seek to have given top level security access as well.
Perhaps she was the only one that didn't want to deal with that shit, and she's the smartest one of the bunch. I don't know. I like to think better of her because
I actually think Donald Trump is not a stupid man.
I know he's cunning.
Yeah, he's definitely.
I don't think. Well, I don't think he's intelligent. I think he's cunning and shrewd.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a smart man by any means.
Well, look, he managed to dupe a lot of people. If that's the case, I think he definitely knows what he's doing. Let's not for
Let's
one
just say
second
he's not a
pretend
well-
that Donald
he's
Trump
not a
doesn't know what he's
well-read
doing.
man.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
To quote
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Republican.
well, you can know what you're doing and not necessarily be a smart person.
I think he just doesn't like to read.
He's got his area of interest, and he knows that area of interest very well. It's just not going to be very beneficial for anyone else.
I also remember people talking about this foreign policy being his biggest area of weakness, and we could expect some ham-fisted moments. We had one come up before he's even the president. Look at me, it's like, Taiwan's on the phone, I'll take it. But Donald, they're not actually technically a country,
maybe
and,
not tweet it out. It could cause an international incident with the other superpower in the world,
Yeah.
China. Well, why not?
But at the same time, it's also interesting. China's making moves in the South China Sea, trying to claim islands and rebuild stuff, and now America's like, you know what? Well, maybe we take calls from Taiwan.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll start acknowledging
Maybe,
it.
maybe we'll claim Taiwan.
Yeah.
it's possible. Our very own Turnbull is silent on the matter, but Arthur Sinodinos did chime in to say that he's just interested in making sure that China and America stay engaged in the Western Pacific, and of course, engaged can mean very different things.
Yeah. Could be a military engagement.
I'm almost certain there'll be some kind of engagement between America and between Trump's America and China.
I can't imagine China's ever going to try and forcefully invade Formosa. And I can't imagine...
They're actively building, like, this. One of the things that's come up recently is when you're planning military exercises on a vast scale, one of the things you build early is the Navy. And their Navy is doubling in size over the next 5 years or something like that. They are massively upping their production in naval
I'm
vessels.
not disputing that, but
I think they're commissioning their first aircraft carrier.
what would they get out of annexing Formosa?
It's their land. I mean,
I know it's their land, but what do they get out of it?
They get their land back, and
It's not worth anything.
well, they took Tibet. Tibet's not worth anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think this
Would
is
you like
necessarily.
to bet on that?
But strategically speaking, Formosa is probably more economically viable than Tibet.
Not after you shell it, it's not. If you invade, it's an economic shithole.
Anyway, I don't necessarily think it's going to be simply about simple issues about what they can get out of it initially.
Yeah, but China's they're very they play the long game, right? They really play it out, and that there's no gain from annexing.
They've waited
Formosa.
60 years, Dean. This seems like a fairly long game.
Well, that's because, but everyone retreated there. It's fine. It's won. You've got the mainland. It's pretty much done.
And well, I mean, obviously, if Formosa didn't think they weren't going to invade, then they wouldn't be buying all these non-existent weapons that America's not giving them.
We've all seen what happens. We've all seen how reliable American weapons are.
They'll probably end up back in China's hands anyway, used against Formosa. Isn't that what happens with American weapons?
Actually, I think China's building bigger and better ones, aren't they?
Pretty much.
And cheaper.
Pretty
much
Bigger,
cheaper.
better, cheaper. I mean, the Philippines.
Yeah.
Duterte, he's saying, we'll just buy them from China now.
Whilst we're on the topic of Cheeto Benito, did you hear that this is the president-elect who gave that wonderful victory speech about he's the president for all Americans. He's going to bring everyone together. He's doing a victory tour, only of the states he won.
Oh, really?
Saying a big F you to the states that didn't vote for him. That's how you bring people together, by showing them the ones that are on the outer.
Well, you got to remember though, the ones that are on the outer probably don't want him visiting. And he's already in New York. He didn't win New York. He's visiting now. People are protesting in the streets.
Well, that's true. I mean, I guess, considering he lost the popular vote by 2.5 million, there's probably very few states with the majority of people who actually want him
Jason,
to.
I'm going to have to pull you up there. That was because illegals voted. That was because that margin is purely the illegal voters.
Oh, of course.
Apparently.
It also doesn't matter that he lost the popular vote.
I know it doesn't matter, but what I'm saying is that there probably isn't a state in the union that actually has an actual practical majority of people that want him in there.
No, but I mean, if you look at California and New York together, that would probably make up the difference in what he lost it by. They're fucking massive, and there's a lot of people there.
And not many of them like him, yeah.
Yeah, not even like him. But that's probably the majority of what he lost was probably the differences in those two states.
So, in short, he will be getting many demonstrations everywhere he goes.
Will they be as good as the ones we've had in our own great nation?
Possibly.
People gluing their hands to the railing in Parliament House. I thought that was ingenious, by the way. There didn't seem to be a lot of them, and they're carrying a few of them out, and they're all shouting and screaming, and then they try and get some other guys to let go of the railing. It's like, I can't.
Can't anymore. I'm stuck.
You fuckers didn't do anything about this, and now the glue is set. You have to call in the paramedics. And then the very next day, they were back. Abseiling down the front this time.
I do know some of these people. They're rather tenacious, and they won't go away.
Well, I just thought it was amazing that after the cops messed up to the point where they glued their hands and it had set, the next day they're like, what's the worst that can happen?
Apparently, this was the first time that Parliament question time has been interrupted in WA. It's never been interrupted.
In Canberra.
Oh, sorry, I thought this was WA.
No, this is federal Parliament.
So it's the first time it's actually happened.
It's actually kind of easy to interrupt because you can walk over the top of the Parliament itself. Like the roof is a dome and you can get up there easily. But it's still pretty funny.
Drop a brick through the glass or something?
I don't think they would look kindly on you if you try to drop a brick through the glass.
Well, they were technically talking about On Water Matters by dropping that banner over
They were.
the Parliament.
They were.
So they're immediate national security risk.
And Peter Dutton didn't want to engage. He wasn't going to talk about On Water Matters.
What banner?
Yeah, it never happened. I mean, it was a sale, if anything, and that's why it's part of an On Water Matter.
I saw more. I'm going to keep on bringing us back to the Cheeto Benito because he's got so much content these days.
Does he?
You know how he loves the Constitution? Well, he knows something about Second Amendment folk anyway. He saw something on Fox, so he jumped on the old Twitters.
Well, hang on. He certainly understands the First Amendment as well. There is one fucker who definitely feels he has the right to speak his mind.
Well,
and that's probably why he feels the Second Amendment is so important, because you say the crazy shit Donald Trump says, you probably need to own a gun.
Well, his interpretation of the First Amendment is I'm allowed to say whatever I want, but not everyone else.
It may not be a very, constructionist view of the...
He doesn't have a very generous interpretation of the Constitution, because he saw something on Fox News, then jumped onto the Twitters to suggest, because basically there was a piece about flag burning. This always comes up to get the right all excited. And he tweeted that he believes that people who burn the flag should have to face a consequence, maybe go to jail for a couple of years.
Or lose their citizenship. Now, because he knows the Constitution so well, he was apparently unfamiliar that the Supreme Court ruled that flag burning is freedom of speech right. But not for him. He doesn't believe that.
I'm perfectly fine with people burning flags, even if I was running the government, because they're paying to buy the flags from me, thereby filling my coffers, and then they're burning the flags. They're going to buy more later and burn them again. I think it's kind of a terrible form of protest. I mean, if it upsets people, which I guess is what they're trying to do, great.
I think I'd be like, you're kind of glossing over the point here.
I'd just be standing in front of them as they're burning the flags, rubbing some money together. Cheers for the cash, boys. Keep on burning.
But this is an entirely different thing. He wants to jail them or evict them from the country.
Yeah, like I said, I think Donald hasn't thought this through. He's a businessman. He should get in the flag business.
He does what
I think clearly you need to appeal to him on that level.
What Trump does is what I call lounge room diplomacy. He brings to the fore what people discuss in their lounge room about how the way a country should be run.
Well, everyone's during the primary and then during the general campaign, it wasn't just rumoured. I mean, apparently it was well-known fact that he got his information from Fox News. I mean, he didn't normally have too many briefings and stuff. It was just him watching TV all day.
That's for the elites, Jason.
And getting his news from Fox, getting his news and what he needs to know from Fox News, which is fucking frightening.
Why? It's fair and balanced. I can't imagine why someone wouldn't want to watch Fox News. Did you see that Jill Stein is abandoning the cause to have the recount in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, she couldn't raise the money.
They want $1 million bond in order to do that.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, if you want to have the wheels of diplomacy tick appropriately,
She
you're going
raised
to
a
have to
whole
lubricate
lot.
that
She
with $1
did
million.
raise a whole lot of money to get through to make the attempt at the other ones. But there was not, in order to make it worthwhile, and this is why the Hillary campaign was getting on board and supporting it tacitly, was if they could overturn 5 states, I think, then it could make a difference. But they were never going to get 5 states to overturn it.
No. But
Then again, Donald Trump was never going to win either. So
well, wasn't he?
depends on who you talk to.
I just thought it was interesting because I don't understand the justification of doing it in the first place. You know, it's a lot of time and effort to spend on something that you're probably not going to change.
Well, no, but there's as someone
There would have
some
to
of the
be,
news. There's recounts done every election. It's
No, I
not it's
understand
not
that.
unusual. People do it all the
But
time.
Trump got
And with-
306 electoral college votes. You need to take.
Yeah, but you've
But
got to realise
For the Green
37
Party,
off
they've got a different agenda. They want to get government funding, federal funding, and if they get over a certain percentage, they can get federal funding.
Yeah, but
that she wouldn't have got federal funding
She's
from this
not gonna get
recount.
Probably not.
But
But there's
from the
many.
Democrats' point of view, the
They
5
want their
states that
votes
won it,
counted.
there was only 100,000 votes in it, so a
yeah, but you
recount
have
might
to
be
flip
justified.
a bunch of those states. It's not going to happen. Even if you flip,
But they want their votes
1 or
counted.
2,
and
it's still not enough.
If she can get the votes counted, fine. But there's recounts done all the time. It's not exactly
It's
unusual.
not an issue, and Bernie handled that question well when it was put to him. He was on a panel
Yeah.
or some interview. He was saying it's a part of the
Electoral
electoral process. If they want to recount, fine, recount. It's not
Yeah.
a big issue, not a big deal.
Don't ask me this again.
Yeah,
Just shut them down. Basically, it was good.
because they wanted to go down the conspiracy angle.
Yeah.
And he was going, not interested. I want to talk about policy. I want to talk about what's going to happen in the future. I want to talk about holding Mr. Trump to his promises.
Yeah.
You can't do that. No one's going to hold Trump to his promises. Donald's not going to hold Donald to his promises.
Well, because Donald's a symbol as opposed to a delivery man. He's a symbol of the alt-right and that sort of ideal. He doesn't need to deliver. He just needs to say random stupid statements, and that's all he has to deliver to those people because they don't want facts. They don't want reality. Oh, he has to build a wall. He has to build some sort of wall.
At the
That's his
moment,
one promise.
he's also president-elect, so
He
he
has
can
to
get away
keep
with
some
just
kind of
saying
jobs, and he's
stuff.
done that too.
You know, like he's not yet taken office, therefore he's saying random things. It's probably fine. Once he
also
takes
made-
office, it's going to be a bit
He
more.
also made a promise to bring
backing.
jobs back, and one of his first actions, even before he's president, is to keep some jobs in America. Whatever the headlines may say, and whatever practical matters come around those jobs, he's actually fulfilled one of his
It
promises.
was a big
already.
political coup
Yeah.
in terms of popular appeal.
So he Carrier Air Systems was
Air conditioners, yes.
big air conditioning company was going to be moving its division to Mexico, and he managed to negotiate a deal which meant they kept 1,000 jobs in Indiana by giving away all sorts of tax breaks and various government giveaways, basically subsidizing those jobs to stay there. But that's not the headlines. The headlines are Donald Trump has kept 1,000 jobs in Indiana, and that's a big political coup for him.
It comes down to this, though. If you have, this is why I'm a big believer in universal basic income, and I'm a big believer in even like the dole and stuff. If you provide people with money to get by, jobs and occupations, and something to do with their day and feel valuable about themselves, they will contribute to society. So it's sometimes it's worth it. You know, if you're getting a net zero from having that company in town and you're paying to have those jobs there, fine. At least people are contributing.
Well,
to
the funny thing is, this was also the most profitable division of this company.
This place could
There
afford
was no.
to pay its staff.
They
There
didn't
was
need
no-
to. They didn't need to move.
This is why it's so egregious. Was
Yeah.
the most profitable? Because Carrier Air Conditioners was owned by a big big national company. This was the most profitable division. They weren't moving because they couldn't afford to employ people.
Yeah.
This was all about short-term profits for share buybacks.
Yeah.
Nothing to do
So-
with the profitability of that division.
So yeah, but and in return for negotiating, he's just folded over and given them what they wanted basically, and they will keep the jobs there.
From a fiscal point of view, yes, they've been bent over. From a populist point of view, it's a massive coup.
Yeah.
Massive coup.
He's fulfilled a promise, and he's not even present.
And he's also shown he's willing to be on the ground fixing that as well. You know, like he's made a promise and he personally will see it delivered. That carries weight.
And it makes Obama look pretty pissed weak.
Well,
Considering he went to Indiana and pretty much was saying, yeah, well, jobs are just going to go, that's the way it is.
That's right, and I think it's a bit difficult, a bit harsh treatment for Obama like that, because when he got into power, America was hemorrhaging jobs at many thousands per month, and he managed to arrest that, and it has had impressive growth over the last 8 years, even in jobs. So he's
but-
correcting that, and he's been creating a lot more jobs than Donald Trump certainly saved in this one instance.
That was shitty jobs he's created.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can dive into that
And they're not
issue
in
as
the
to what
areas-
kind of jobs they are.
They're not in the areas that flipped.
Absolutely, but for the same, but he did do that, and he arrested the fall of the recession, the Great Recession, and
And
everything.
Wall Street bounced back wonderfully.
That's right.
The
But
Rust Belt, not so much.
but as we found out that this is all about appearances, and Donald Trump has got fantastic news out of this, and he looks pretty golden out of it as well.
That's just his orange glow. So did you also in speaking? I'm just keep going with the Green Party theme. Did you see the news about the backpack attacks here in Australia on the last day of Parliament?
I've heard bits and pieces. I'm not quite across what it's all about, though.
So Malcolm Turnbull has been trying to get some wins on the board
So
before
if he's involved, nothing
the
actually
end of the
happened.
year. No, well, interestingly enough, so he was trying to reach a deal with One Nation and some of the crossbenchers to get this legislation across, which would see backpackers taxed at their income tax at 15%. But I think it was Rod Cuddleton from One Nation and a couple of the other crossbenchers were holding out for 13%, even though Pauline Hanson, the leader of One Nation, was like, we're going to go with this. Her own party, admittedly, one of the member who she threw under the bus was like, the High Court should investigate his legitimacy as a candidate. So they couldn't reach an agreement, and so they were going to be losing by one vote. And then Richard Di Natale, the leader of the Greens, actually went and had a chat with Matthias Cormann and said, hey, you guys haven't even bothered to talk to us about this. And so the Greens offered at the last minute to save the legislation and get it across the line. Because if the legislation didn't go through, the backpackers were being taxed at 32% anyway. So by getting this deal across the line, the Greens have secured $100 million more for Landcare, which the National Party would fucking love, because a lot of what they do is around rural work. It's a win for the Greens. It's a win for the Nationals. It's a win for Scott Morrison himself has come out and said, look, we'll just find the other 100,000 from somewhere else. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's going to be like a net equal for the budget. And Turnbull actually got something done.
But they have to get the budget passed, do they?
No.
They don't have to do that?
Have they lately?
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, this isn't requisite on them passing an actual budget.
No. This is as optional as Donald Trump submitting his tax returns.
Okay, cool.
So what's the driver behind this backpack tax? So this actually lowers tax for backpackers?
It's a bit of a giveaway for agricultural companies because they get cheap labour.
Yeah. So in order to ensure the agricultural companies continue to get cheap labour, they've passed some legislation that now backpackers do get taxed on their income, but it's less than they would have been taxed.
So it's like a flat tax for backpackers.
Flat 15%.
So you go out fruit picking and you're getting taxed at a much lower rate. It's seasonal work, and I don't know. There's probably some arguments about whether they should be given this or not, but it's a bit of a giveaway. But
I can understand it's obviously hard to get mainstream Australians to go and do seasonal work out of the cities and so forth. So these times it makes sense. You've got to throw incentives out for people to do this work. And I suppose with
shouldn't that be left to the actual company that's okay. There's obviously arguments either way as whether you should give it. Whether the government should be subsidising or whether the actual industry should be.
And I think Dean and myself probably agree on this, that there's some aspects of society you do need to subsidise. Some industries you're never going to be able to compete on a global scale, but in terms of a better society, it's good to have some.
Yeah, there's always value in applying some protections.
I'm a strong believer in maintaining a local farming industry. We should be defending our farms and keeping them in Australia. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be dependent on foreign nations for food. Not half of the reason is because shipping that food here costs ridiculous amounts of greenhouse gases anyway, but also we want to maintain that just in case shit goes bad. You don't want to be dependent on other nations for your own survival.
And I'm a recent convert to this line of thinking. I used to be of the mind of if Australia can't do it at a competitive
free market all the way, Franco.
We need to move our workforce to areas where we can excel. And then I realised that, in a society,
blue collar people need blue collar jobs, Frank.
Not everyone wants to be white collar labourers. Yeah. Some people want to be blue collar labourers, and you need a diverse society to have a happy society. And we don't want the economy of the society to move away from everyone.
We've all seen what kind of a place Perth becomes when it's all miners working there.
Yes, indeed. So that was pretty interesting. And the other piece of federal government news that I noticed during the week is the Adler shotgun is looking like it's going to be classified as a Category D firearm.
And what does that mean?
So New South Wales were pushing for it to be a lower category. All the other states were like, no, category D. Category D is a controlled weapon available only to pest control specialists and people who are basically working for the government.
Mm-hmm.
So the shotgun will be available if your job is taking out feral pigs, which is the use case in question that they were talking about. If you're dealing with feral pigs, you need this. Turns out the states are like, okay, deal.
We've got a category for that weapon.
You made a good point. If you're killing feral pigs, you need this gun. Well, they can have that. So it's looking like that's going to go through. I don't know if that's exactly the outcome that Mr. Leonhelm was after.
It's about to ask if 18C man was happy about that.
But it's another item that I think is off the government agenda at the end of the year, which they kind of are looking forward to have some of these little wins on the board, because up until now, Turnbull had achieved precisely.
I think so New South Wales was still a holdout, because I think I read something.
They've conceded to go with category D.
Because I thought I read that today. They were going to give it the highest category as well.
Yeah, which at the end of the day, if everyone else is like category D and you're the only holdout, you come on. It's like a jury, isn't it? If everyone's like, we want to go home, man.
It's like, dude, give us your argument.
Yeah, give us your argument for why. And they're like, wow, we want guns.
we like guns.
My argument is bang bang. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay. Have we got anything else?
I have a Vox Pop question for the team here, out of curiosity. Because obviously we probably all have been listening or reading a lot about the US elections, and very different, various pundits' opinions as to what happened, what went wrong or what went right, depending on your leaning. So I was just going to ask you, chaps, why do you think the Democrats lost? Why do you think Hillary's lost?
I think it's the same reason as the Brexit, though. People weren't listening to working class Americans in this instance. And the same thing that happens here, which is why Queensland voted for One Nation. You've really got to understand that you can't just assume you're going to get these votes anymore. You can't just go, well, they're Labor people, they're Liberal people, they're going to vote for us. They won't. If you don't give them a compelling reason and make it look like you're listening to them, they will abandon you in droves. Or in American case, not show up.
And in the case of America, I mean, they've had signs there that this was going to be an anti-establishment election for some time. There was the popularity of Bernie Sanders, the obvious surprise popularity of Trump as well, and they were both running anti-establishment.
Even Trump was surprised by this.
Yeah, so was Bernie. I mean, Bernie was not expecting to win when he got in. He was going in as a message candidate, and what do you know? He got 46% of the Democratic voters. So there was an anti-establishment feel already. The Democrats went with possibly the most establishment candidate they could find.
Because it was her turn.
Because it was clearly her turn. And they'd spent a lot of time... So I actually think there's a lot more blame to be placed on the Democratic Party for losing this election to Donald Trump than Donald Trump actually winning it.
I squarely point the Democrats.
And the Democrats had put so much effort into eliminating so many other valid candidates. Putting Bernie Sanders aside, they swept Joe Biden aside. They removed Elizabeth Warren and a whole bunch of other people that could have been legitimate contenders during the primary. And by removing those, they just had that one candidate left, plus Bernie Sanders, who they just simply
couldn't eliminate.
They couldn't eliminate, but they did, and
they tried.
You can argue a little bit about how much they affected it.
Really,
but whether he had a chance of winning or not, they removed the other ones who definitely could have had a chance of winning.
I think Elizabeth Warren would have won.
I think Joe Biden would have won.
I think Joe Biden probably would have won as well. The internet seems to love him. There's all these memes about it.
Yeah, and then they went through, and their message during the general campaign, all the way through, was that, I don't even know what their central message was, except Trump is terrible. They didn't have some ongoing theme like Bernie Sanders had his 3 lines about the establishment and the anti-Wall Street and all that kind of thing. He had some very clear messages. Whereas Clinton's statement was, "I'm with her." It was all about her and how she should be president and how he was terrible. And there was actually in the final night, there was an interesting ad put out by Donald Trump, which if you'd removed a lot of the pronouns and stuff, it could have been almost a Bernie Sanders ad that he put out. There was none of the racism, all that kind of bullshit.
His wife is known for plagiarizing speeches from people, so...
But what I mean is he had a very hopeful message put out there, and hers was a very negative message about him Like her campaigning was all very negative about him.
I think the Democrats ran a very negative campaign in general. You know, they ran the fear of the Reds under the bed. They ran the fear of Trump. They ran the they did not have a.
They had a new voter base that was totally available to them. Bernie Sanders had turned out all these new voters that they could have snapped up, and they spent the entire Democratic primary insulting them and calling them sexist and unrealistic. And then what do you know? Those people didn't vote for him. Didn't come out in the general.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few.
I genuinely hope that there is some heads roll in the Democrat Party. I don't think they will. Yeah. But I feel like they're going to be out in the wilderness for 8 years.
I'm a glutton for this kind of punishment. And I've been trying to find evidence that the Democrats are learning, and in fact there was no, absolutely not. They don't think they did anything particularly wrong. It was they just go Trump was just this force of nature that no one could have predicted. And yet they won't acknowledge the mistakes they made. And there was some quite, as sort of hopefully I pointed out, there were some quite clear ones.
Well, the other thing is Trump's numbers aren't great.
No, he was the most unfavoured candidate in the American history.
All these new voters.
I mean, they were better than Hillary's, though.
He got
the Republican faithful to vote.
He got 1 million voters less than Mitt Romney, who lost the last one. So he got 1 million votes less than him, and he still won.
Which if you actually look at this right,
which shows if Mitt Romney had run against Donald Trump, he would have won.
Trump didn't win. Hillary did so
Hillary
bad.
Lost. Yeah, Hillary lost it.
Trump didn't win. Trump just kept some. Well, he went down. Hillary just went down further.
Yeah.
None of them really drew a groundswell of support.
The Democratic Party are trying to make all these...
But I mean, that again was clear before the election was decided that they were the most unpopular candidates in
both
history.
Of them, yeah.
Both of them were.
She was the most unpopular in history, except for him.
Yeah, and it was their own arrogance to assume that, people will vote for us anyway. Yeah. He just got lucky that Republicans tend to show up and vote, especially older Republicans.
Well, and he didn't activate new voters, but he certainly turned out enough of the ones that were there.
And the Cubans.
And some Cubans, apparently, yes. He did remarkably well. But I still think it was Hillary's election to lose, and she lost it. But, yeah, the Democrats don't seem to be interested in taking any lessons away from it. They're already talking about the next election, and they're talking about all these establishment candidates that they're going to put forward.
Well, you never know. If Trump does a sufficiently bad job, I mean, it's incumbent governments lose elections. The opposition don't.
It's very possible, but
so Trump might just throw it out. Speaking of, I made an allusion to the Cubans. Raul Castro did a media conference during the week where he said that his brother, right up until his death, had demanded he did not want a cult of personality, and there were to be no monuments, landmarks, schools, anything named after him. And Raul Castro just put that through in law. There's to be nothing named after the leader of the revolution at all in the country.
There'll be no defacement of Fidel Castro monuments.
I think that's really good because everyone used to accuse the communists of these cults of personality, and Castro's like, nope. And even in death, it's a big fuck you. To America.
Well, if anyone they sort of put through the cult of personality, it was only Che, if anything.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Even on his deathbed, he was like, "I want you to make sure nothing gets named after."
Even if you're talking communists, I don't think Lenin was particularly partial to that cult of personality.
No, I'm talking about Joseph Stalin. He was big on.
Stalin was big on it, and they saw Lenin's value after he died and was elevating him and they kept him in a freaking mummified coffin on display for 100 years, whatever it was. It's crazy.
You got a problem with that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to keep like George W. Bush on display? Kevin Rudd.
That would be a good one.
Paul Keating. Bob Hawke. Bob Hawke would be a good one.
No, I'm talking about someone you can throw something at.
You throw tinnies at Bob Hawke, he'd love it. Ghost tinnies. Hey, did you also see... I've got one more story that I'm completely out, so just bear with me. Did you see that the Senate inquiry into George Brandis and Matthias Cormann is due to happen before Christmas?
Oh, excellent. That is my Christmas present for the year.
So they're not going to announce the result thereof until March 2017. But they have the power to compel George Brandis and Matthias Cormann to come and give evidence. They're also seeking...
power to compel.
They're also seeking Joe Hockey. They're also seeking Joe Hockey to come along. They're also seeking our own treasurer, Mike Nahan, to come along, our own attorney general, Michael Mischin, who was the one that was like livid with Brandis. Justin Gleeson, they're seeking to get him to come along.
Yes.
And the ATO Commissioner, Chris Jordan.
I think he might make himself available, don't you?
I'm hoping Justin Gleeson is like, yeah, actually, my calendar's free. I'll
do an FOI on my calendar. You can see it. It's empty.
It's published, actually. It's online. If you want to see my calendar, just go to www.calendar.justingleeson.org And yeah, it's there.
You won't need an FOI
don't
to
need
get
an
into
FOI.
mine.
Just book me.
George.
How's your calendar, George? Can we take a look? No, we still can't look at your calendar.
Did they ever release his calendar?
Apparently, Georgie Boy, under questioning in the Parliament, did address the issue Labor was asking
Yes,
about. And he said just...
no such deal was made.
Yeah, no such deal. He considered it for a moment, a fleeting moment, but that was it. That was all he would concede.
It's interesting, however, that all of that shit went down with Justin Gleeson. Then, if no such deal was made, why would you be angry at him for making that argument? That's odd. I mean, everyone knows George is essentially a psychopath. And he probably gets angry about all kinds of shit. There's fucking milk in my coffee. God damn it, Clarice! No, I only have milk on a Tuesday.
Gary, Greg, what have you done with my coffee?
A new AG directive that all coffee making will go through the Attorney
Yeah,
General.
must be approved by the AG. But that's going to be a little Christmas miracle. Oh,
We're going to get a few miracles in the new year because Turnbull has to release how much he spent on the campaign.
in February, yeah. That's going to be good. February's going to be that. March is going to be the results of George Brandis. I'm actually surprised. They were talking about Turnbull supposedly maybe doing a cabinet reshuffle before Christmas, and Friday was the last day he could have done it. And I thought Georgie would have been thrown under the bus.
Once again, he doesn't have anyone to reshuffle in.
I mean, George is a heavy man, but we've got some big buses.
I think, unfortunately for Turnbull, he needs Brandis in the front bench because he's his only ally, really.
Well, he also is probably pretty handy to be in going, I'm not as corrupt as that guy. I mean, at least I'm not as bad as he is.
Clearly, Brandis is a scary individual, and he keeps some number of people in line just
He
by his
obviously
presence.
wields significant power within the party.
Yeah, but I think he's going to go down.
Yes.
Gate.
It's going to be a slow circling of the plug hole, but I reckon he's going to go down. I mean, Bronwyn Bishop, she wielded power within the party as well. Tony Abbott had her back, and it brought him down. Like, he spent that much time trying to look after Mumsy that it ended him too.
But it also shows you how far they will go to keep these toxic characters in until it absolutely goes beyond the pale that they have.
That's
to
because
go.
they all know how toxic each other are, and it's like I think there's a bit of an unworded threat that's like, if I'm going down, then you're going down with
Well, also interesting. I thought maybe Tony Abbott would have got that ministry. It would have been announced at the end of the year. No word about that. So Tony literally went on Sky News and basically said, you either give me a job or I'm going to continue to flame you in the media. And Malcolm just went, what? I'm sorry. I'm
busy.
What's that, Mum? Oh,
I'm busy
I've gotta
being
go.
Prime Minister, Tony. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Didn't have time for you.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Got some important 18C legislation to talk about.
I can imagine Malcolm Turnbull's secretary going, we've got every week this must happen. We've got Tony Abbott's resume in again for a cabinet spot.
Yeah.
Malcolm Turnbull's a rich bugger, right? Why is he putting up with this shit? Shouldn't he just go and retire and be rich somewhere and just...
Once again,
Why?
ego.
His ego.
Must be, because why would you deal with all this crap? You got Tony Abbott sniping at you from the back. Your best mate's George Brandis.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't need this.
Surely you'd wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you'd be like, my best mate's George Brandis. I've got to change my
But
life.
this is the problem. These guys don't do rarely do any of us have a true reflection of ourselves. We have a very convoluted sense of id.
Mm.
And
Well, you always see yourself as a good guy.
yeah.
Malcolm probably sees himself as a good guy.
I think he sees himself as
George Brandis, I don't think he sees himself as a good guy. I think he's quite happy with his evil.
He probably looks in the mirror and he's like,
Content.
people respect me.
Fear
People
me.
like me.
People fear me.
People maybe fear me. Maybe a little bit. But most of us respect.
he's just a Rumpole of the Old Bailey type character.
Jolly old Brandis.
Oh, that's all I've got.
I'm out of content.
Done.
All right. Thanks for listening to our show. I've been Franco.
Hopefully you're all still there.
Jason. And hopefully this has gone through to the end.
It has. I've been listening.
Superb.
Well done, chaps.
Push the button.